Good morning. Um,
Good
Hello,
morning.
Adam.
How's it going?
I'm good. I'm Allison Joy. This is Adam from the Battle Ram blog, and we're here this morning. We're going to color some Masters of the Universe, and I'm just getting everything. There we go. All right, we're all set up. Really quickly, we have one, and this is common for the morning. We've got a few people trickle in. It's a nice thing about starting early. Good morning to Rhea Black. And my good friend Shannon is here. Shannon has a great coloring channel for people who are watching this and don't know who Shannon is. Go check it out.
Awesome.
So anyhow, I'm excited because Adam is from the Battle Ram blog, which for my MOTU toy nerds is one of the premier, if not at this point the only, in my opinion, source for Masters of the Universe information on the internet that you can trust. And if anyone's like, there's somebody on the internet who has a YouTube channel, I said who you can trust. I said what I said. So welcome, Adam. Thank you. You were on when I said I wanted to start live stream coloring with guests on my channel. You were on my top 10 list of people I wanted to have on. So
Well,
try
thank
not
you.
to
I'm flattered.
fangirl too much.
All right.
So if I do, I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay. This will happen to me like twice in my life. I promise you.
Yeah, right. You're like my Woods. Oh God, I'm gonna mess it up. My all the President's Men reporters of the MOTU of ToyTube for me. So, of the internet in general. So, I apologize. It's like meeting your hero because I just remember the Battle Ram blog, and I remember when there were 7 articles on it, and like now you're just I don't know. It's amazing, epic work. I appreciate it.
Well,
Kept
thank
me
you.
a lot of company during the lockdown when it was just like, I'm like, let me go read about MOTU. And so,
Yeah, it's funny. Like during the lockdown, I was like, I wrote less on the blog, partially because I was working, I was helping out with Pixel Dan's book, but partially
yeah,
also just because I was like, all right, I got to find new things to occupy my brain because everything
yeah,
was so stressful.
yeah,
And
it
then
was
I
just,
kind of, yeah,
oh, sorry.
then I came back to it kind of as things got back to normal.
Well, see, I never noticed. I just noticed there was a lot there. So it was like there was plenty to keep me occupied. So
Yeah,
good job.
thanks.
So for those wondering, really quick, again, this is going to be the nature. I'm just going to be awkward and we have to deal with it because it's not, if Liz Fair ever comes on here, it'll be like this. That's the goal. She's on my top 10. But anyway, we're coloring the Dragon Walker from, this one was released in 1985. The coloring book it's from. So Dragon Walker, which was an 84 toy. Yeah.
Hmm.
But it would have hit 85 because publishing. And this was also right when Whitman was was spinning out of Mattel because of some bad financial decisions Ruth had made. Called income. What was it? Stock market fraud? I don't know. Something. You can be anything, girls. Anyhow. So yeah, Adam picked this because it is. Is it your favorite vehicle? Am I correct?
It's my second favorite. Like Battle Ram is my first. That's what I named my website after. I even like I brought it out today just so I could use it as the my
Yeah.
color reference.
My color reference is the top page on your Battle Ram blog for the Dragon Walker. It's like let's really quick chat. People have popped in. We've got Alex Black Phoenix. Thank you. Dave Dimension, welcome. Lovely to see you. Same. We'll probably get to for those of you here for breaking MOTU news. We'll do what we can. But we also are vintagey people first. So. Dave, you're not awkward. You're just real. Okay, I'll take that. So did I. Dragon Walkers, when we didn't have a lot of the vehicles as kids, we were super spoiled when it came to play sets and the figures, but we didn't get a lot. The vehicle, I would say it was space or price, but we did have Eternia. So I think it was just my mom was a Barbie girl, so she had a dream house, all the dolls, but there weren't a lot of vehicles.
Yeah.
So even for Star Wars, which was very vehicle driven, we didn't have a lot of those. So I think it was just how my mom's brain worked.
This was the only one I got as a kid that was battery driven, and
Yeah.
which made it special. And is also the mechanism is so unusual the way it actually moves. It's stuck immediately. I love the look of the face too, the sort of craggy,
Yeah.
rocky, dragon face.
Looking back at it now, for me, it's the last purely like classic MOTU vehicle in the vintage line.
Hmm.
After this, the design started getting a lot. I mean, the sculpting improved on the line over time, and for me, ironically, that's when some like my interest in MOTU, well, also Princess of Power hit around this time, and I was full in. But some of it was as this, and obviously sculpting should get better on a toy line the longer it goes once they get more money. But for me, that really rough, barbaric look of the first 2 or 3 waves, just for me was really like what sold it. It was that roughness to it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely, there there's this mix of sci-fi, but the sci-fi that was in it, it was not sleek. It was not, Star Wars sci-fi. It was very kind of it still looked kind of primitive.
Yeah, it was very chunky and blocky, and there's not. Yeah, it was like here we are in the middle of this medieval castle that's a giant skull head, and there's this big chunky computer that like not even NASA would touch at the time.
Right.
Like it looked primitive, like primitive electronics. Like our giant home computers were giant at the time, but like even compared to those, like all the MOTU computers looked very dated. And
Yes.
I don't know, there was just something really cool about my grandfather worked in the space program, so it was like
Oh, that's cool.
I'm used to sort of seeing technology, and that and Star Wars was also, or the more modern stuff they've cleaned up, but early Star Wars, the first movie was also like that, where it was
Yeah.
very old.
Yeah, actually I think I meant to say Star Trek and Star Wars came out.
Oh, that's fine.
Or, but even that, like some of the first Star Trek stuff was a little clunky too, but
It
maybe
was it
I'm
was,
thinking next gen.
but yeah, Next Generation was but even early Kirk and because my friends Kayla and Johnny who have Geek the F Out channel. Right, I recommend it, y'all. There's also a couple of videos of them hanging out with me here and doing Star Trek. They have a show on Thursdays, Trek Retrek, where we rewatch. And I don't rewatch all of them because some of the old Star Trek episodes are hard to sit through just from a pacing and the way TV has changed. Um, but even sort of the early days, I think of it as like carpet and a computer screen sci-fi because it's literally we've got a bunch of carpets and some computers.
Yeah.
But even that is still it's designed to look futuristic, and a lot of it obviously is Mark Taylor's sort of design aesthetic with the computer side of things. But the way the electronics are in early Masters of the Universe. It's very dated in a way that, yeah, it's like 1930s electronics before there were computers. As I get like
Yeah.
it looks like Flash Gordon stuff.
It does look Flash Gordon-y. And then like the color choices. Well, I know Rebecca did kind of the final like label. Like if you're thinking of Castle Grayskull,
Yeah, the
the
Castle
labels in there.
Grayskull label.
And the colors are kind of to me are almost kind of psychedelic, like
Hmm.
70s too. So there's this mix of this retro futuristic, control panels and
Yeah,
70s colors inside this, green uh, fantasy castle with
I think that,
skull
yeah.
face.
Well, see, like my dad, what I think they used to call them head shops, like where you would go to get
Oh yeah,
incense and things in the 70s. Legal, of course, but still, paraphernalia, I think, is what they used to call it. But you
right.
could get like records and like lava lamps, and I think like because my dad my parents both really encouraged the collecting and the toys and stuff. My dad obviously really liked MOTU, but he also had like, you know, like a bunch of like art books with Frazetta and the Hildebrandt brothers and, you know, sort of all of that. So like I think part of the reason we were able to get so deep into some of these toy lines was because our parents were pretty like I had young parents. Like my mom dropped out of high school to get married because my dad was going to Vietnam and I might never see him again. So very young, too young in
Yeah.
my opinion at this age.
Yeah.
But because they were so young, but it was a time where we didn't have adult collectors, I suspect now that a lot of it was our parents sort of living that through us. So my mom couldn't
Yeah.
have Barbie, but I could have it all.
Yeah. I was talking to my mom about this recently, and she was like, I don't remember us having anything that interesting when we were kids as far as toys. There were just some very basic dolls. You know, you might get like train sets, and
Yeah.
a few like building sets, and a few really basic stuff, but nothing imaginative like what sort of exploded in the late 70s and then the 80s and beyond.
Yeah. Well, Mark Taylor and Rebecca sort of came out. I mean, like my understanding is sort of they were. I don't want to quite say counterculture because like that has sort of changed over the years as far as what counterculture is thought of. But they were sort of that. I don't want to call them hippies because they don't. They're not quite hippies, but they're sort of that vibe a little bit. Like
Yeah. I mean, I've seen pictures of them as young couples, and they do kind of. I mean, not a lot of people did, but they do. You know, long hair and
yeah,
kind of that kind of vibe from the 70s. And I know, like a lot of Mark's, like I mean, he was drawing when he was a kid, but
hmm
he did some serious work in the 70s when he was in college, like the Skeletor. It's not the Skeletor, but not Skeletor drawing with the big crossbones. He looks kind of
yeah.
mummified. That was early 70s, and then that eventually, he would use that as a jumping off point for Skeletor.
I think, and that's a good point for us, for people watching. A lot of the misconception, like Demo Man, for instance. My guess is looking at that. The reason people thought for a while that was an original Skeletor concept is because it was really common in design. I do this. I don't really design. I don't do a lot of original art, obviously, because I color on the internet. Stuff that I think is super cool and awesome. But a lot of that is people are like, well, look, the Demo Man even reuses sort of this thing that later was used for one of the Skeletor concepts, and it's like that's really common in art and design, where you just trace a particular model that you like. You like the position of it. You like sort of the shape or what. It's a good model to like graft onto. Like I have in my sort of old folders, I call it the blank, and I would just pop it down, throw some tracing paper over it, trace it, and then add new costumes and make it new characters. So I think some of what has happened is people not understanding sort of, especially if you worked in a toy department and you were having to come up with lots and lots of concepts for potential toy lines, you're not going to draw from scratch a character every time. It's
Right.
got to
Yeah.
go quicker than that.
Yeah. And like he's got like there's a barbarian hero character he does, and the armor. This is pre-Skeletor, but it's got sort of those Roman-esque
hmm
things on the shoulders. His shield looks like just like the shield that would end up with Castle Grayskull and the weapons rack. So there was a lot of repeating themes that they could be shared across different characters that he was coming up
Yeah.
with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm putting this up here. And I want to say this because this is the truth. About 40% of my knowledge is because Adam does the work he does. So I want to give credit where credit is due. If it weren't for Adam and his archival work and his research and his interviews, I would not know half of what I know. So Thank you again, Adam.
Well, thank you. I'd like, that's the same for me though, because before me was the Power and the Honor Foundation, was
Yeah,
the old Grayskull Museum, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. It's this French site that
yeah, I
had a
remember that
bunch
one.
of old stuff. Yeah, that was great. So we're all building on what other people learned, and then adding our own discoveries too.
Yeah, that was like when I sent you some Shira stuff the other day. I was like trying to, and one of them I'm like, I have and it was a link to an old message board that no longer
Hmm.
exists. And I'm like, I have no idea who this was, and it's really hard for me. I'm gonna assume also for you because I do like to at least source stuff, especially when it's something really unique. And it's really hard, especially because so many of these old sites are going away. If you just had the link, and
Yeah,
I don't know that I don't want to. I don't, it's not like upset. It's not like sad, like I'm gonna cry. It makes me concerned for sort of the loss of not. I know this sounds. Some people are like, but it's just toys. But it's like it was very important pop culturally. It was very um Masters of the Universe for and Barbie. Most of these major toy lines they shaped our society. They shaped the kids. Like there are a lot of people in this world today who have a very specific set of values because of He-Man or Star Wars or even myself, there's some days where it's like when I need a little extra motivation, I'm just like, all right, girl, get your ass in gear for the honor of Grayskull. Let's get going.
yeah,
And it's, like when Carrie Fisher passed, it was impactful in a way where it was like, um, remember when you were a kid and you found out there was no Santa Claus? Like there's this deep
hmm,
sense of loss, even though technically it's not something you ever, Carrie Fisher and I did not know each other. She was just
yeah,
Carrie Fisher. But it was like, it was that feeling like when I was a kid, like there's no Santa Claus, he's not real. And like it just,
yeah,
to be a grown ass adult and like get hit in the gut like that, it was just,
yeah, yeah. No, I get that. That was for me when Mark Taylor died for sure. That was a punch in the gut. And
you and Mark,
thankfully he had been interviewed many times by
yeah,
different folks. But there was one like before he even started blogging, Tony Guerrero passed away,
oh my God.
and nobody, as far as I know, from the He-Man fan world ever interviewed him, and he did all the sculpts of the first 8 characters.
Yeah,
Um, so it would have been great, but what all of those experiences from his point of view are lost as far as I know.
that's, and that's the stuff that sort of makes me sad, especially the art side of it. Like, there's so many great art. Motu is great to me because of that art. Like the I'll call them mini comics. Like that's I'm here because of Tila. And
Yeah,
my mom bought like my brother the entire first wave of them. So like Beastman and I just like these are for babies. Look how big and clunky these are. These are look how I apologize. Look how cheap these. I'm like maybe 8 or 9. Okay, like
right.
it's not like in some old, like I was Star Wars, and to me the articulation was worse, and then I picked up his mini comic, and it's the one where Tila basically is fighting tooth and nail against Beastman, while like Skeletor is trying to still charge her, and just something about the way she's swinging that sword, like she's not taking anything from him. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, they still capture her, of course, but it wasn't the typical damsel in distress. And at 8 or 9, how whatever age, it was that Princess Leia thing. Like, yeah, she was captured or whatever, but then she had to get them. Like someone's like, yeah, but she took them into the garbage masher. It's like, yeah, it's better than they got out of that. Like, they wouldn't have gotten out of being fried alive by laser bolts. Like,
yeah, yeah, for
but
sure.
it was just that image, which was how Alcala drew her from, and that was the original sort of Tila design as well. But that for me was like I must have Tila. So
Yeah, Yeah, Tila was great. I want to say I don't I remember playing with Tila as a kid. I don't know if she was for me or like my sister had her, but I
Yeah.
just remember she was at her house and I played with her. And I thought her snake armor was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Just it was so mysterious and like, oh wait, she's a hero, but she's got this kind of
Yeah.
evil looking snake armor.
It was just, yeah, and again, it sort of tapped into all the sort of, it was like Frazetta for kids, because my dad had
Yeah,
all of that stuff. You know, and some of those pictures are a little scandalous. You know, I
yeah,
wasn't necessarily always supposed to be looking at some of them books. But I love the art and the pour over it. So it was kind of like, this is my thing. And again, Tila was a lot more empowered than some of the ladies in the Frazetta art. No offense to the Frazetta fans. I know people will argue with me, but to my 8-year-old mind, there's a big difference between a lady with a big old chunky butt, which I do appreciate, laying there screaming as a snake comes at her and being rescued by some dude with a sword, than Tila bonking with the, you know, like, and I believe she still had a sword in that one. I
hmm
should remember, but I don't know. She was, and then the snake armor was so that my first custom was painting the eyes on that green, like in the
yeah.
cross
Like in
cell art,
the
I think,
yeah,
or maybe it was Castle Grayskull box. I can't remember
she
which it was.
does. Yeah, the photos on the Grayskull box that's got the prototype with the
Yeah,
green snake eyes.
and the cool spear. I'm still sad to my utter core. My inner child is still super sad they have not given us a version of that Tila.
Yeah, it's really way overdue. They did most of the other, of that ilk, like the Lord's
Yeah.
Power guys, but I to the point where I made my own custom of it just because I needed that for my display.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've got in progress my Words of Power Sorceress. So
Nice.
at some point I will finish her. It's just too many things. And we're sort of in the process of trying to buy a house, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
But it also will include a workshop where I can just have custom stuff sitting out and lock the door without cats molesting it. And keep selling all the vinyl capes for my Star Wars customs. Luckily, they're repros and not vintage. Let me check in really quick. I know, Shannon. I'm sorry. There's no Santa. Hello, Brennan.
Spoilers.
And yeah, spoiler alert. Exactly. This is how I choose to look at it as well, speaking moistly. I hope I'm accurate. A little bit, yeah. There's a lot of different. This is what I like about Mark Taylor was he didn't draw from just one place. It was very much, and like what's the overuse? A fusion of many different things.
hmm
Yeah, ladies
Yeah.
can do stuff now. That's
Well, he did.
exactly what it felt like.
Mark did say like because he did many faces, and the human face with the sort of the paint across the eyes
Hmm.
looks like a mask. He said that was a Mesoamerican influence on that one
That's and that it's I don't know. Manny Faces was I think it was like my birthday the year that like Tila and Zodak hit the same time, and that was my birthday. Had like $10. And I went to get them, and the lady at the counter was like, "You're gonna need more for taxes." And I'm like, "What are taxes?" This is how I found out what taxes were.
there.
And she sat there and argued with me. I'm like, "It says 4.99," and the lady behind me just busts out laughing. She's like, "The kid has a point. Give her the toys." And the lady's like, "I need the taxes." She's like, "I'll cover the taxes. Just let the little girl have her little doll." And then I tried not to get offended because like it's not a doll, it's an action figure. So it started for me really early.
That's
Really
great.
early. Like it's an action figure. Now I'm that lady. It's like, sir, you're playing with a doll. Stop taking it so serious.
Yeah.
But what was your? I should know this because I'm on your site all the time. But what was your first Masters of the Universe figure?
So I got the first four all at once for Christmas the year they came out. So it was He-Man, Skeletor, Beastman. Well, I think it was either Christmas or my birthday, but I don't know. I still can't remember, but yeah, He-Man, Skeletor, Beastman, Man at Arms. So it was, and with the Alcala comics that came with them, or
Mhm.
Alcala, I always forget to pronounce it the correct way because
I
I
pronounce it like
pronounced
a
it.
white girl.
Yeah, I I learned too late how it's actually pronounced.
Yeah, that's part of my problem.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it was totally those first four. I don't think I read the comics, but I looked through every page. Just fascinated with everything, studying every detail. I remember my brother, he was older, my older brother, and he was kind of, I think he was more of the Star Wars era too, and his remark was that the muscles were totally unrealistic. That's what I
That's what
remember
I
him saying.
thought. Like that was
Yeah,
it. Just they seem big and chunky, and they seem like overgrown tinker toy. Like wouldn't have had that language at the time because 8, maybe 9. But that's what I thought. But again, it was just as soon as I saw Tila. But Tila also, I also appreciate as someone who has pretty much for my whole life had weight fluctuations. I appreciate Tila had them big chunky thighs. Like of the many body issues I have experienced over my big chunky thighs never there. Thank you, Tila. And Shira too. And Shira had those calves. So anyway,
that's right. Yeah.
let's hear it for chunky girls. Anyway. All right. Quickly, I should catch up on chat. Sorry, chat. I'm just excited. This is one of my toy tube internet research archivist heroes here. This is what you're gonna get. All right, let's see. Greeting. Hello, Christopher. Lovely to see you. Duchess, thank you for popping in. Lovely addition the other day to your You and the Prowlers Hollywood series. Loved it. Bobby, you just wrapped up a series. I'm
Hey,
looking
Bobby.
forward to more. Thank you for popping in. Bobby and I are trying to figure out, he's going to come color some Dick Tracy with me soonish.
Oh, dude, that'd be
So,
awesome.
yeah, and well, as soon as it get, I've been stalking this Dick Tracy coloring book for a really long time and finally got it. Right around the time Bobby and I started chatting, I'm like a perfect excuse for Dick Tracy. Mechanic is a good one. I like the silver on him. I would go away for the summer as a kid to my grandparents, and my brother would stay home. So I would come home and he'd have all this cool shit.
Yeah.
Of course, that year I came home with probably cool shit too. That was the year my friend Jennifer's mom Joyce bought me way too much strawberry shortcake stuff. And my mom was mad because it was those dolls were like $6-7, which in '80s money was like $30 or something.
Right. Yeah.
And she was just like, "That's too much. We're not that poor." It's like, yes, we are. Um, Christopher, so do I. Christopher and I chat on Instagram messaging quite a bit about like girls' toys versus boy toys in the '80s. So yes,
Yeah.
yeah. See, I Tila and Zodak. I got Zodak because of the Star Wars, but I think Manny Faces was my first purchase. Like that was mine. That wasn't my mom picking the toy out for me. That was my first
Right.
two. That wasn't like super purposeful. It's like, oh, this is a cool toy on the shelf, and then after that, Evil Lynn hit, and it was just done. I'm like, okay. A lot of people just with conversations about that. That's what we love about chat. Most welcome always. And before we get back to, I'm not paying attention to chat a little bit. Exactly, Alex. Exactly. Chunky thighs. Anyway, all right. Yeah, so but he was really, but that was also one of Mark Taylor's last designs, correct?
Yeah, it was his last one, as far as I know. The last two were Ram Man and Manny Faces. Manny Faces came out first. I don't
Yeah,
know which one but the art is only dated 82. It doesn't have like a specific date. So.
yeah. I think he did in our area because that was one of the toys that just mysteriously showed up for my brother, and
Yeah,
I was just like, "What is this thing?" Did not help the Tinker toy because he's got such limited articulation, and it's funny because looking at Mark Taylor's designs for who the character started out as is just how they. It's a nice way how they simplified that design.
They definitely did.
It's a polite way to say it. How they simplified his design.
Yeah, I know he wasn't happy. He had to make a lot more. I think with the first wave, he was very free to
Hmm.
mostly do what he wanted, but then the second wave, it was all of a sudden there was real money behind it, so
Yeah.
everybody was giving him direction on what to do, and he didn't like it.
And it also seems like, based on sketch timing and whatnot, that they brought in Colin Campbell around that time because that's when, because the dates on the Evil Lynn sketch and the Trap Jaw sketch, oh wait, which you can watch as shorts here on my channel if you go to the Masters of the Universe coloring shorts playlist. They're there. Anyway, it seems like they brought Colin Campbell in really quick when they
Yes,
realized they had a hit.
Colin Bailey.
Sorry, Bailey. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I think happened was that basically Mark quit in the middle of designing, the first parts of that second wave, and they were
Okay.
kind of left in the lurch. So yeah, they brought in Colin Bailey. They brought let's see who else. So we've got Mark doing Ram Man, Many Faces. Colin Bailey did Trapjaw, Evil Lynn. Roger Sweet did Triclops, and then of course Faker was just I don't know actually whose idea Faker was, but he's obviously just
Faker was marketing. We need something really quick
yeah,
to get out
yeah,
there. What can we do that just completely? We can do a different run of plastic. There's just, and you can tell because he's not really in. He's not even in the mini comics until they re-released him later.
yeah.
My
And
memory of him as a kid was that there was a commercial
mhm.
that ran, and it was really early. Like, I always thought Faker was wave one, like he was a late wave one, because my brothers like came on the 8-back card,
Yeah,
and then I got mad.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I've wondered about that too. Like a lot of people, would say, he's got to be like late '82 because he's got the effect. Um, and I wonder that too. I know in my research for the advertising, the earliest
Mhm.
ad I found for him was like April '83.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything on him earlier, but
Well,
it's
in April.
interesting.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say April '83 is when Tila and Zodak. That's my birthday is in April. That's when I got them.
Hmm.
So he was not in stores then, but of course, because of the way they released those first few waves, like, um, it was just harder to find those two. I don't think it was that, oh, Tila and Zodak did not come out until then. It was just like there weren't as many coming out, and Christmas would
Right.
have wiped the shelves. But that's when I finally was able to find those. So that, and that in my head, that's always the tail end of wave one, and Faker would have been not long. So if that's when the ad hit, I think, if retrospectively, if we could go back, we would call Faker like 1.5 wave or something like that,
Right.
because he's like the bridge between the two.
Um,
That's the
but
moment. We're
the
making a lot of money off these toys. Let's throw something together real quick. Stick a sticker on.
exactly. Yeah. And then the ads for the buy three get one free
Mhm.
for basically for Savage, He-Man, Wondar, whatever you want to call them. Those were also April, so about the same time Baker was advertised. You also have that offer. So I think that was like basically let's do two quick repaints
Yeah,
to
exactly.
while we figure out what we're doing for these other new characters.
Well, yeah, and they were both. Then they would have been able to run those both at pretty much the same time, um, and using similar. The orange for Faker's armor, of course not, but like Faker is pretty much the same blue as Skeletor for the most part. So
Oh yeah,
it would
yeah,
have been really inexpensive to sort of.
very similar.
Um,
Some figures even had like this is kind of a weird anomaly. Some of them had Skeletor arms, which you don't know if you've got a loose one if that's original, but I've seen them
yeah,
mint in box where he came with instead of He-Man arms, he's got Skeletor arms.
I don't. This could be Mandela effect, i.e., me just misremembering. But I feel like the faker in our house had those, and we definitely didn't have multiple figures at that point. Like later, I rebought Tila and Evelyn because mine both fell apart because I played with them a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And because they didn't have rooted hair, they could go in like mud puddles and stuff. So it was just, yeah. But yeah, that's my memory. We had both fakers though, because we bought him in '87. Because as I tell my mom, we've lost the sticker on him. He doesn't work anymore. And she was just like, but we got another one. I couldn't find the sticker to glue back onto him.
Yeah.
It didn't work. So yes, yes, people wondering, I have always been like that. Like, he doesn't work. He's broken. It's like
Well, that's his machine parts, right? You just gotta.
right. We didn't have toy polloi in the '80s, guys. You lost a sticker, you couldn't find it on the internet. Your mom was just like, draw it and glue it on there with Elmer's. Ugh, the '80s. I'm just kidding. But yeah.
I don't. If you hear some weird noises, my dog is on the floor demanding my attention.
Oh no, it's fine. I had to feed the unfeeded right before I started. Otherwise, there would be cat gymnastics all around.
Yeah.
And our newest kitten, he's a year old now. We're coming up on his gotcha date, and he is mouthy. Like so, if I hadn't have given him treats right before we started, he would be over here right now fussing at me because he will start coming up like doing meow. It's food time, right? We feed them like food. They get treats through the day. But we give him food at like 9 o'clock, and at 8:57 he starts marching around this place, just sassing us like, "Oh my god!" It's a long way of saying like, yeah, I get the no worries about the pet thing. It's not a weird sound. It's just what they do.
Yeah. This one's a little bit more. We've got two, and one of them is definitely more whiny.
There are often doggies, especially if he's a slightly, well, I say this, but sometimes slightly older or slightly younger dogs will be super, super needy. And then they'll go through that phase where they're like, okay, I'm fine. And then they're back to neediness later.
Right.
He's probably also like loves you though, like you're his human.
I am. Yeah, and I'm basically I'm the dog walker and the dog feeder. So
Aw.
yeah.
We tried that, it doesn't work, but even if one of us feeds him, like I went and saw Deadpool yesterday and Matt stayed home. And I get a message right when I'm like about to come back into the apartment, like I'm out front of the house and stuff. And I get a message, she's like, I just fed them, don't let them trick you. And as soon as I came through the door, all three of the cats were like, oh my God, we're starving, help us. He hasn't fed us in hours, throwing themselves dramatically. And Matt walks in and he goes, I just fed them. And they all stop, turn and look at him, and then look at me like trying to decide if I'm going to believe them. And I'm like, well, it sounds like you've been fed. And they all like just sort of give like, and then they all take off and go sleep. I was just like, you guys are terrible. Terrible. All right, let's check in really quick with chat. Hello, good morning, Todsy. Yeah, agreed. We might get to that today, me and Adam. We might not. Luckily, I didn't do toy news, so we don't have to if we don't have to. Hello, Rick. Yeah, see, I'm holding out hope. This is the one place I'm holding out, hoping Mattel gives us a Dragon Walker because it's harder to find one nice. I don't need it to work. I just need it to be nice. Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, I mean, I do have the Attack Track is another one I wish they would update, but I have a really nice vintage one. It doesn't work, but I don't need it to. I don't need it to chase the cats around the house, basically. But it's some pretty nice. I need to print and cut stickers. Thanks, Toy Boy, to fix it up. But other than that, it's really nice. So, but I would still like a Origins one that's updated.
For sure. For attack track, I'd love to see. I don't know, and this might be a minority, but I would love to see even more than the vintage toy, the monogram kit version, which
That
I
would be
think is
really
much more
cool.
interesting. Yeah,
Well, I mean, they sort of gave us the best of both worlds with Roton
they
by
did.
adding
Yeah,
those elements. So I'm hoping that and that would also, if they could find a way to do that, would help sort of counter but it's not motorized. And it's like, probably not, but I
right.
don't want to spend $50 on an attack track.
If you could just push it and the treads flip, I think that'd be fine.
Yeah. I don't, like a lot of people with Origins are very upset when things don't include the
The
action
feature.
feature.
Yeah.
But like Mechanic is the perfect. I hated Mechanic as a kid once I realized he was so limited in his posability.
Hmm.
And same with Ratlore. Like it was like you can only do so much because of the stupid head popping up.
Yep.
So yeah. So I'm very happy with, even though I still haven't taken Mechanic or the Road Ripper out of the box, because again, we're limited space and we're gonna move. It's one more thing to pack. But I was very happy with the Mechanic. Sort of, like there are a lot of things I do not care for in the design choices for classics, but I do like that they mimicked action features, so that the action figure was still an action figure and not just vintage Mechanic where it's like, well, all right, you want to use this power, he has to be weirdly sideways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because he had those cool, like, I don't know if it was vac metal or a cool paint, but like his eyes and those silver boots, as
Yeah. I believe just the plates of the front of the eyes are back metal,
yeah.
and everything else is silver paint.
It was just, I don't, as a kid, he was super cool, and it was always unhappiness that to make that work, he had to look really dumb.
Yeah, that's a huge limitation. And they could have like kept the feature or done the feature a different way, like just like Mantana, just like a lever up the
Mm.
back or something like that. That would
Or
have been
even how they did with Extendar later, like
hmm.
just give him, but I can't speak for their engineering department. It's have you read I say read, I've been doing audiobooks because I can sit over here at the filming table and film lots of videos and listen to books. There's pretty good book Mattel where they're talking about the history going back to Barbie through Bratz and stuff, and it's really
No.
Barbie focused, but
What's it called?
it's let me look it up again. Can't believe I can't remember. I'm old, guys. I can remember stuff about Masters of the Universe from 1983, like it's happening to me right now, but something I listened to 2 weeks ago and used as a resource for research work. Can't remember. Can't remember off the top of my head. This is how it works. Okay, book club. There we go. Toy Monster by Jerry
Okay.
Oppenheimer.
Okay.
The audiobook has a very this is going to sound so mean the way I'm about to say this, but it has a white lady reading it who sounds very professional and very prissy, but it's the
Mm.
perfect voice for the Mattel history. And my takeaway from it, and reading sort of Mark Taylor's stories and even Roger Sweet's memories of the end of Roger Sweet's time at Mattel is actually addressed in it, because despite some of what is perceived by some of his shadiness toward Masters of the Universe stuff over the years, I have no opinion on that. I haven't read his book either because it's too expensive. I reserve judgment until after I read his side of the story. Um, but he sort of got a raw deal. He designed this really expensive, like $300 dream house that bombed.
Mm.
And it was like it was his fault it bombed instead of the then CEO of Mattel sort of getting out of touch and reaching for the stars. So it's really good.
Yeah.
Details the Barbie stuff, which is not quite as crunchy granola as Mattel would have you believe in modern day.
Yeah, yeah, I would believe that. Yeah, Roger. Just aside from his claims about the beginning of the line, he did run the design department from I mean, right after Mark left, he was put in charge of it, and then up until towards the end, whenever he got let go, some for most of the vintage line. I'd say my favorite Roger Sweet design is probably Mechanic. I think it's such a weird,
It's
unusual character.
it is, but
Uh,
it's also so MOTU. Like,
yeah, it's very, I don't know. It's weird in a good way. Sometimes I like just if something's just totally out there. Like I like the laser light Skeletor and some of the new adventure stuff that looks
mhm.
just extremely bizarre and creepy. He's not bizarre and creepy in that way, but he's just so off kilter and quirky looking. I like that.
Well, he's one of the last real, in my opinion. I'm happy to be wrong if people have logical, well thought out contradictions to this statement. But for me, Mechanic is the last of that sort of 70s era futuristic sci-fi element. Like there's some sci-fi stuff that comes along later, but it's much more 80s driven. Whereas
Yeah,
that the whole design of Mechanic is so 1970s sci-fi, which like I definitely dig that aesthetic. So you just got the really angular helmet and the silver and the little breathing apparatus that doesn't actually seem to do anything because
yeah.
it's way out here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, I've got the vintage figures like on my wall in front of me, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to think what came after him that looks like anything like that. Nothing really. Yeah, I think you're right.
And then he was sort of, again, there's all that. And with Mechanic, there's also sort of all of that. Was he 83 or was he 84 because of some of the ads, which I know because I looked into that for Toy Geeks. And I think I messaged
Yeah,
you back and forth a little about some of that.
yeah. It's funny when I first wrote my article about it. I was convinced there had been some things on He-Man.org where he was called an '83 figure, which I didn't
Mhm.
believe at the time, for reasons because his date is '83, and usually the date is a year before the figure
Yeah.
actually came out. He's got the clamshell armor, which is a characteristic of the '84 figure. But he did come out a little early. He came out like December '83. Um, he's still grouped with that '84 wave, like
Right.
he's in
Because
the
that was,
catalogs with them. But I found like if Mattel wants to do something a little ahead of schedule, they'll do it December. Like they
yeah.
don't do their regular figures debuting in December for the year. If December is where they'll debut often one of the from the new wave that's coming out.
Yeah.
So yes, he's kind of both. Is the answer.
Yeah, he's almost like sort of the faker situation where it's like he's technically between waves, but not quite. I mean, we didn't get him until 84, but still, I say we, my brother, but I just took all of his stuff. So, I mean, our collections are, it's not like we had separate, I mean, Strawberry Shortcake and Glamour Gals, and those lived in, and later, my Shira stuff all lived in different boxes. But otherwise, all that stuff, all of our figures were just intermingled. He only had one Princess of Power. He got Pika Blue. And I was
Hmm.
not for that. I traded him instantly. I'm like, do you want Spike War? You need Spike War. I need Pika Blue. How dare you take my figures? This is my collection.
That's right.
I think honestly, of the many things that like for me was really why I love She-Ra. It was also because it was the only toy line I got that was 100% mine.
Hmm.
Because I held that line with Pika Blue. Um, but everything else we ended up sharing, which is probably why I didn't have as many like Barbies and stuff, because not as easy to share that stuff.
Yeah.
I did have a Darcy doll. Kenner's many attempts to dethrone Barbie that never quite worked. But
I remember I had a sister a year younger than me. She had a ton of Barbies. No She-Ra though. Just wall-to-wall Barbies.
I feel like She-Ra was a little. I mean, like, this could just be my memory being what it is, but it feels like there were some concerns over She-Ra being too. I don't want to say butch because it's not the right word, but like too much of a negative influence on girls. They might want to fight, and that could just be the
Right.
area I lived in. But I just feel like there was a little concern with that, and then of course Filmation fixed it so that she never used her sword to do anything but turn into stuff that was non-violent. Thanks, Mattel. Yeah.
So,
Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
No,
I was
no.
just going to ask you, like, because I know some She-Ra fans are more, they like the toy design better or the filmation design better. Where do you fall?
I'm 100% toy design. I'm happy that we're getting some She-Ra representation in because of the cartoon collection, but I 100% prefer toy look. Even as a kid, like we went and saw Secret, and I did share. I shared this story. I've shared this story many times, but I shared it with you like when we were talking She-Ra for your stuff about how I busted my butt that summer to buy all of the She-Ra stuff. Um, what a lot of people sort of who aren't old enough or don't clearly remember is back in the day when a movie came out, if it wasn't like a big deal, it didn't go nationwide.
Hmm.
So even though like Secret of the Sword was released like in March, it didn't come anywhere near us until like July. I saw it in July of '85, right?
Right.
So I had seen some of the I had like the color form set, and that was Filmation design, and I was very concerned. And I had the Who's Who coloring book that was all in Filmation designs, and was very like, why is it so different? Where's Castaspella? And then there's a few pieces of art in there where she has the back piece. I was really anticipating Castaspella because she also had red hair, and before the Little Mermaid, there weren't as many. Other than that stupid Pippi Longstocking.
Oh
Don't come
yeah.
at me, Pippi Longstocking fans. Couldn't stand it. It was like the Wendy's girl, Pippi Longstocking, and Medusa from The Rescuers. So just that's not, Um, but yeah, I didn't like the designs were too simplified, and Mattel marketing. Like if you look at the original prototypes, the coloring is really close to Filmation. They did
Hmm.
that test market with little girls of the '80s, and they were like, it's not pretty enough. And suddenly there's all the extra holographs, it's extra sparkly, it's extra like pastel and all
Yeah.
these pinks and purples. And like, I'm just gonna say, like, Castaspella in blue and yellow, Castaspella with that light lemony orangey goodness, like it's just night and day for me. I prefer those toy looks. Like the Mattel marketing people knew what they were doing, and I know people prefer the Filmation look in some cases. I don't begrudge them. You like what you like, but for me, it's
Yeah.
like toy design wave one mini comics where it was like Etheria was a little bit more wild, and there was no horde. Catra had a bunch of barbarians that worked for her, and she was just mean.
Hmm.
There's the two best mini comics, and three. There are three. The Journey to Mizar, the Ice Diamond one, and then the story of She-Ra. And it's like I like that Catra where she's actually a threat. She's like got magic. She's not just turning into a cat. She's not submissive to a man named Horde. Like again, girl power for me was always a thing. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's embedded in me. I can't, it's not like my mother was not super feminist. I do not have a lot of super feminist family. So when people hear this is just, I was just born this way, y'all. But from the beginning, that again, Tila, like, yeah, she did get captured or whatever, but she bonked the heck out of them. Like, if they captured her, it was because they overpowered her and she couldn't fight anymore.
Yeah.
And usually it took 2 or 3 of them to take her out.
Right. She wasn't just waiting in a tower somewhere to be
Yeah,
rescued.
she didn't see the monster coming and she didn't throw her hand up and go, "Oh my God, it's a monster! He-Man, save!" Or like Lois Lane throwing her ass off the cliff, hoping He-Man would come. I mean, Superman would
Right.
come save her. Like, oh my God, I need to be saved off the cliff. It's like, girl, he is not going to show up someday. But I don't know. I always and I loved what I liked about, but She-Ra also did have the soft girly thing, so it was a nice balance of it. It was,
A
yes,
little bit of
everything's
all.
pink and sparkly and glittery, but we're gonna punch capture now, y'all. And so, let's see.
That's Chloe.
Yeah,
She's saying, "Dad, why aren't you doing something with me?"
Capture's a little all over the place. When Justine Danzer originally designed She-Ra, what became She-Ra, once they told her you don't have to make She-Ra Tila's sister, Justine Danzer just sort of went to town and designed a lot of cool stuff. Her capture designs are really epic, but it's very 80s, very punk and like a lot of,
Yeah.
um, but really fun. Like I would love a Lords of Power style pop where they kept, you know, do a lot of Justine's designs and, you know, in toy form because there's just some
Yeah.
cool stuff there. And
That would be
yeah,
cool.
originally Catcher was more of a anti. She was more. I don't want to say Boba Fett because Boba Fett was totally a villain originally. He became an anti-hero after the fact. But she was more of a. She's not a good guy, but she's not really a bad guy. She's just sort of there. You know, like she was a complication in the plot as originally designed, and originally it was just way more fantasy and. I don't know. I would really love to see. I, you know, some company like um it's Four More, right? The company who is
Oh,
doing Legends
Formo.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, Four More. I always want to say FOMO, but I know that's different. I would love to see them sort of reach out to Justine or, you know, and like chat with her about some of her designs because she had some really cool stuff that did not make She-Ra. Like her original, she had a character she was designing called Nova that basically fused into it. I think when she was over at Kenner doing Glamour Gals, because it's not like Mattel was the only toy company wanting to do action dolls, Galoob.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I don't know.
So
It's really interesting to me.
and I actually have a question. Maybe you know. So I know she did. Like there was some Crystal Castle drawings that were up
Mhm.
on Heritage Auctions,
Yeah,
but
those are
it says it was done for Kenner. So did she originally pitch that to Kenner and then it went to Mattel?
okay. So here, this is okay. So I'm going to preface this with y'all. I don't have all the sources needed to back up what I'm about to say. So this is it's this is speculation that I can't back up at this time. I would love to one day find enough or talk to Justine enough to like. I've been trying to track her down, and people who know her are. She's very elusive, and I think that's fine. I don't. People who are elusive that way like are usually for reasons, and I don't want to. I'm not going to speculate why. I'm just going to respect it. I would love to get the chance to like chat with her, but this is my rough understanding from the bits and pieces I've gotten from various sources. So Justine was working at Kenner, and she came into like second year of Glamour Gals and did a lot of designs that ended up coming out as part of Wave 3. And part of what killed Glamour Gals was Mattel suddenly decided once Glamour Gals started selling, oh my God, why don't we do 4-inch Barbie dolls and we'll call them Dazzle, which saturates the market, kills it. But Mattel still has Barbie, and now their doll thing is protected, and suddenly they're not making little action figure dolls anymore. Once Kenner realized that Glamour Gals was sort of winding down, and Strawberry Shortcake at this point was also starting to wind down as the first generation of kids start sort of aging out. You know, like the Very Happy Home hit in 1983, and that was sort of like the culmination of Strawberry Shortcake-ness. And after that, it just starts. So they're looking, and He-Man and Masters of the Universe is selling really well. What about actual action dolls? So they had Justine do some concepts, which she referred to as Nova and Andromeda, if I am remembering correctly.
Okay.
And there are designs of those floating. I may not have sent those to you. I will find them. She showed them at PowerCon that year. I found a site that had some better resolution with her watermark on it. I'll send
Right.
those to you later.
Okay. Thank you.
But it was Andromeda and Nova, and then Mattel is suddenly interested in 1983-ish and doing action dolls, and this is the way the breakdown looks to me on the Mattel. The Mattel side is easier to track here. Tila is selling extraordinarily well. Little girls are going to the action figure aisle to get Tila and Evil Lynn. And you helped clarify this, I think, in your She-Ra video for me, where all of a sudden, so originally, as stated in your video, the boys department starts designing She-Ra. Well, who becomes She-Ra, right? Originally, she wasn't called She-Ra.
Right. Like Leela, I think. Right.
Yeah, Leela, Tila's sister. Well, that's from the girls department also. They just started, they wanted a woman action figure line. And
Right.
that's where what's sort of referred to as, in my head canon, Battle Armor Tila, that you were able to clarify was one of the first She-Ra designs of the woman on the unicorn in armor.
Yes. Yes.
So that was the original design, and based on sort of your research, it sounds like they were not going to necessarily. It would have been like a horde, not even necessarily having to be a horde thing, where it was going to be sort of maybe even a separate toy line at one point, not necessarily even He-Man, but it was going to be a boys' toy line designed for all the little girls coming to get Tila and Evelyn.
Right.
Yep. So what do we know about Mattel based on history? No, we can't have anything take away from Barbie. Let us take this girl's action line. But at the same time, what would have been really far along in development, that Mattel would have been concerned competing with any sort of doll line over at Galoob is Golden Girl.
Right.
Golden Girl hit in 84. She-Ra has all the copyrights in 84, so everyone's always like, oh, She-Ra came out in 84. No, they didn't hit till 85. The copyrights are there because that's when they started developing everything.
Right.
But it also helps the narrative, and Mattel is really into the idea of narratives. One of the things I took away from that book and some other research is half of what Mattel does is the engineering and the trademarking of and patents. Like, this is where they make most of their money long term. And there are a lot of patents around the way Barbie dolls are made that crippled the ability for other companies to make dolls. In that, you know, like when you look at Kenner toys in the 70s, you're like, why does Darcy and Dusty and all these other dolls and Gem even have a completely different body type? It's because there was a patent on the body type for Barbie. And so you couldn't make a doll that would have been exactly compatible with Barbie fashions, which is going to cripple any other fashion doll. And so anyway, back to sort of the She-Ra Mattel thing. Justine is over at Kenner, which is not having a good time in their girls' toy department as Strawberry Shortcake starts winding down. And if you look at Kenner girls' toys after Strawberry Shortcake, it goes even further into like fairies and magical horses, and you know, they never really get the girls any sort of girls' toy line going well after this. But at that point, Justine's been working on Glamour Gals, which is canceled. It seems like they're maybe not interested in purchasing these concepts for her about the girls action doll line, and now she's working at Mattel. So my rough estimate, and again, this is why I would love to be able to try to get if you get an interview with her, feel free to still any of these questions. It's not about like, I have to have the story. It's like, I just want the story out there.
Right.
But like, my impression is Mattel hired Justine knowing sort of what she was working on and had her bring those designs. And then at the last minute, it seems like they pushed her out.
Right.
And put all of their people and did a bunch of redesigns, because a lot of her original designs did not end up in the line. So that's my rough take of how that all played out.
That's interesting.
And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to learn otherwise.
Yeah.
Which is, again, this is all speculation on my part. Anyone watching this, please do not state this as fact. Like, and it's not the typical YouTube disclaimer where people are like, this is just facts and like, it's literally speculation. I can't back up, and I don't, because this potentially could make Justine have a bad day if people take it a certain way. Please don't, like, take it as fact. This is my guess. So anyhow, that's a really long way of saying all of that.
So this kind of simply reminded me. So Dragon Walker actually wasn't originally a He-Man thing.
Yeah.
It was proposed as part of a new line of toys. I don't know anything about what that line would have been. That line wasn't greenlit, but they did bring over Dragon Walker. It's like, hey, let's bring that in for He-Man.
Yeah. Which that does make sense, though. I think a lot of toy companies do that because it's like it makes more sense to not lose all the money from research and development.
Yeah.
It's funny though that because Dragon Walker does look very MOTU.
It does. And this is from Roger Sweet, like an old interview from him. I don't know if he means like the original looked like this, or if it was just a similar motion concept.
Oh,
maybe it could have been a totally different style, but the same kind of.
Or it could be that
locomotion.
Well, as you would know if you go read Adam's site, the Battle Ram blog, they have patents on the mechanisms in this. Yeah. So it might even be just they needed to use the patent to secure it. Oh, he's looking pretty good. How is your Dragon Walker coming along, Adam?
I think it's pretty much done. I don't know. I can't get like too. I don't know. There's a limit to how fine I can do with crayons.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks really light on the screen.
Well, I will say, like a lot of people, the complaint that I often hear about Crayola and crowns is that you can't get a lot of blend and a lot of effect with them, but you're doing pretty good there. So I think it's just knowing how to use your material, which I should have asked it a while back, but do you have any sort of an art background?
No, just like years in school doodling in the margins. That was it.
But definitely an appreciation, because so much of your MOTU research is sort of really focused on sort of like the art of the toy line and how it was developed that way.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate people who can create all this amazing imaginative stuff. Maybe in another life I could have done something artistic. I mean, I probably could have if I had enough interest at a young enough age to pursue it, but I just didn't.
Yeah. Well, we also sort of live in a world where it's like it's not easy after sort of after adolescence to even get interested in stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I had stopped doing anything art for a long time, and sort of how the adult coloring thing happened. I was like, wait, I can be creative and artistic. And I will say, like original art, there's a lot of sort of, you have to put a lot of heart and soul into it and like really dig down into it. And what I do like about adult coloring is I don't have to put that into it. I get to, especially with these old coloring book pages, I sort of get to go in and fancy them up. And yeah, there's definitely technique and stuff, but it's like I don't have to there's not a story, there's not lore. I just sort of get to make somebody else's art look really cool. So
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's like meditative too. It's sort of, you know, it'll for me. I know I probably like a little bit of ADHD, so just having something to do sort of
mhm.
frees me up to concentrate better.
Oh yeah, you'll probably notice from time to time if you've ever watched any of Oz's streams when I'm on there. I'm often sitting here coloring, even if it's not for a video or for the channel or whatever. I'll just sometimes be working on things for me. It's been really, like I came out of the pandemic having gained weight and with blood pressure and other issues, and part of getting my stress levels down was getting into the adult coloring, and it's really good for that. The meditative side, just being able to sort of clear my head and focus. I'm not half as nervous about hanging out with you today as I would have been otherwise, because I can sit here and sort of focus a little bit on the Dragon Walker.
No, I
Uh,
mean it's great. Like, and then you don't have to, because yeah, I mean, I do the frenzy stuff, and it's kind of nice not having to stare at myself.
right?
I'm looking away from the camera, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's for me a big part of getting online. And plus, as I mentioned frequently, some dude once told me I have way too much forehead to be on the internet. Um, so I don't have to, I can sit and look at the page rather than staring at my big giant five head. So, but yeah, like I heartily recommend it. I'll send you some more coloring pages if you just want to print some out and have them there for when you're on the frenzy,
Yeah,
so that you can sort of pick at something. But yeah, so I don't know. I recommend everyone, get a coloring book, get something you can color with, and just keep it around. And it's good for keeping, especially if you're a fidgety person or you have a hard time. If you're somebody with ADHD and you're trying to get a control on it, it can really help with focus. So 100% recommend everyone find something you like doing. Life is too short to enjoy your life. All right, let's see. I'm gonna check in on chat because I have been forgetting about them. But that's okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I try to know a lot of things, so I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. RoboForce is one of those interesting things too. Yep, Golden Girl hit a little bit before at the very tail end of 1984. And they sat there because they didn't have a cartoon. Um, also, I will say Galoob did make the mistake of they do not perfectly scale with Masters of the Universe. I think if they had scaled them more in line with Masters of the Universe, Golden Girl would have sold a lot better. Yeah, Nacella is redoing those. Let's see. Right. Yeah, some of them don't. Some of them was just about what is going to be a fun toy. I think modern collecting, we sometimes lose sight of that. And I try to bring myself back to it. Is this a fun toy rather than, oh my God, it's so different. I can't, the ankles don't move, but is it fun? Is it pretty? Does it look good? Do you like it on your shelf? Yeah, the nacelle stuff tends to be a bit spendy, but nacelle is still smaller, so their profit margins and all the stuff. Yeah, like it takes a while to get back, so don't worry. I so I'm gonna address this really quick, Todd. Not to like bag on you, but the social skills. I don't think any of us lost social skills during the pandemic. I think a lot of us forgot how to use all of the fake social skills that we had to cope with society, and I have taken it as an opportunity to not worry about stupid social skills. Uh, all right, yeah. So it would be. I hope so too. I doubt it because it's Galoob, and I can't find who created Golden Girl. I can find so little information on it that I can't imagine Hasbro, who acquired it after the fact. Because when Kenner closed, a lot of the Kenner records disappeared. So when people are like, "Oh, why don't they bring back this old Kenner property?" They may not be able to because they may not know exactly who owns it. And so, like people are like, "Mask, we want Mask back," and when they tried to bring it back, there were these weird changes. And Jay and Dan Larson are doing Mask for season 2 of Toy Geeks, and I was looking into it, and a lot of the Mask concepts that everyone thinks of as sort of quintessential Mask sort of happened on the Dick side when they were making that cartoon. So it's almost maybe quasi Filmation, Mattel, where some of the Mask stuff may not be able to be made without a royalty, and depending on how Dick is set up, they may not even be willing to negotiate. So, because I don't know that they exist, and I don't know what the sales are like, and
Yeah.
sometimes the rights are just too messy for a property that's not going to make a lot of money.
I
Or
keep
you have to
wanting
hope it's big.
I keep wanting Inhumanoids to come back, but I've heard the rights to that are also messy. In some
Yeah,
sense.
a lot of sort of the when sort of you see that with later Masters of the Universe, where they would bring in these outside engineering and sort of design departments to sort of design these figures. It's no longer in house.
Mm-hmm.
And with Mattel, it seems pretty clear they secured all the rights, but I can't imagine people would. Also, I think we all need to take a moment to realize, sort of to understand and acknowledge that in 1985, nobody thought that in 2024 any of us would still care about any of this stuff.
No.
So the rights were not structured, like the whole concept of franchises or whatever, like just not there. I think Mattel comes closest because at that point they had been in the toy company so long that they sort of understood, the value. But also once a brand died, they probably didn't think too much, which is why a lot of sort of the trademarks and stuff expired. But I don't know. It's just I have to remind myself of that too when I'm like, oh my god, they should just do it. And it's like, yeah, but the rights are messy, and nobody thought 30 years from now, 40 years from now, that people would still care about Gem and the Holograms or He-Man or any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just, which is why now everything is so corporate, because now they understand in 30 years from now it might still be something.
Yeah. Well, I know like early on, some of the creators who would get contact by fans, it's pretty common for them to be surprised, like, oh, I can't believe anybody still cares about this.
Yeah. And a lot of them just sort of threw stuff out because it was just a job. Like
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
somebody got interviewed. It wasn't for Masters of the Universe, but it was like some property from the 80s. And I remember sort of the comments thread was like, this person doesn't seem to appreciate this thing, and just sort of kind of losing their mind because they didn't feel like the creator was in awe enough of how much everyone still loved this thing. And why does he not remember this minutia? And it's sort of because this was work for hire in the 80s. Like it was a gig.
Yeah.
Like he was probably doing 30 other things to make a living. Like he's not. I noticed that you did an interview with was it Paul Cooperberg from DC Comics, or am I thinking of the
No,
Champions?
somebody else did that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he had that attitude where it was just
Yeah, it
work
was
for
just it
hire.
was paid work for him. There's an interview with somebody who did one of the books on your website. And I don't know if you did the interview or if it was
Yeah,
somebody else did, but they were just saying like I don't really remember. Like it was one job in 17 I had that week,
right.
and this wasn't the one I saw the comments. It was something like that though, and they were just like, I can't believe he doesn't. It's like he literally worked on a freelance project for like a week. He turned in a script. He was sent a marketing kit. Here's what you need to know. Here's what we want, and then he sends it off. He gets a check. That's the end of it. I mean, you didn't always
Yeah,
get comp copies back then if you wrote, like your book was published.
yeah. That was definitely the case with Paul Kupperberg. That was the case with Don Glutt. I did the first mini comics. Um, a lot of, I don't know, probably even Rudy Obrero. I mean, he really enjoyed. He worked closely with Mark Taylor. He enjoyed the work and enjoyed working with Mark. But it was like, I think at first it really was just a job. Like, okay,
Mhm.
working with these Mattel folks, and just the challenge of it. It became too much a drama towards the end, and he was glad to kind of be done with it.
Yeah, it seems like, and I think I hate to keep saying, and I think I read it on your site, but it's the accuracy of the reality of things.
Yeah,
It does seem like Obrero was saying that it just got to where they were micromanaging him too much toward the end as far
yeah,
as what it needed to look like. And
yeah. It would, and they would like his stuff was done in oil
mm,
painting. So it was at first, for that reason, it was a pain to begin with because it's very easy to damage. It takes forever to dry, but like he would
yeah,
get towards the end, he'd be working with a bunch of different managers, and they'd all have like their 2 cents to put in. Whereas with Mark, when he was at the beginning, it was just there wasn't all of this sort of micromanaging. It was just
mm,
make it look like Frazetta, make it look cool, and that was it.
right. We need to sell something, and we're not selling Clash of the Titans.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, oil paint is horrible. My uncle used to do a lot of oil paintings, and he would always tell me as a kid, "Don't work in oil, acrylics. Like, oil is the worst. It takes forever to dry." And the
Yeah.
one time I didn't listen to him, like in my 20s, I'm like, I'm gonna become a serious artist again. Let me get some oil paint. It took forever to dry. I'm like, no, he was right. F this. Acrylics all the way.
Yeah.
And so I mean, oil paint lasts a lot longer too, though. But it is like if you want to change it, you have to wait, for it to fully dry and then go in and repaint it. Even for
Mhm.
Zeta, 'cause I've been doing research on him for various projects for myself. But even for Zeta, like some of his famous paintings that were published, like in the '60s and stuff, well '70s, um, don't look the same because he went back and repainted over them later. Like once the paint
Yeah.
was dry, he was like, "Okay, let me go fix this thing I didn't like," but I just let ride because I had to get it published or the job was due. So that's funny because I was at the Frazetta Museum online and there was one painting where it like shows the painting like three different times because there was the one he sold that we remember from the magazine. There's the one the first time he redid it, and there's the one that's like it is now because he died before he could redo it a fourth time. So,
Hmm.
um,
Interesting.
but of course George Lucas is the only one who does that. I'm just kidding. Just
Right.
kidding, everyone. Not really, but I think it's common in artists to sort of go
Yeah.
back and tweak old stuff. We're just not used to it in film because there used to not be the ability to do that. And so, Obrero he's one that I really, because that Castle Grayskull oil painting,
Hmm.
the Battle Ram, the Wind Raider, those are just such strong pieces. Like those could have been published in
Oh
sort of
yeah.
the magazines Frazetta was in, and nobody would have thought, oh, this must be for a toy or something, because they're just really strong,
Yeah.
sort of fantasy illustrations.
Yeah. I think and none of these they didn't have window boxes on most of these other than some of the like the Battle Cat, the two Battle Cat sets. So the art was really selling it, and I think the art was, you didn't necessarily need to read a comic. You could look at the
Yeah.
scenery and the artwork. You could get a sense. Okay, this is what this world is about. The sort of battles that go on. Um, that would kind of give you your start for how you play with the toys.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that's sort of, I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing on Filmation. I just, over time, have not been as much of a fan. I really sort of liked Mark Taylor's idea in the beginning that really these stories were like a starting point. Castle Grayskull wasn't a good guy place. It wasn't a bad guy place. It was just a place that
Mhm.
they fought over. Um, and the sorceress didn't live in Castle Grayskull. She wandered the forests, looking just like Tila figure.
Yeah.
But Tila's a clone. Anyway, let's not go there because that comic still pisses me off.
Yeah, that was just so convoluted. Just trying to, and it all stemmed from them not wanting to do two female figures. They would
Right.
have just
Just
been
make the second.
just do the green, snake armor sorceress and Tila, and that would have prevented so much confusion.
Oh my god. It's almost the Chinatown level, like my daughter, my sister, like, and then
Yes.
Skeletor's like, I'm gonna kidnap this baby clone and raise it and then marry it. And I'm just like, let's
Yeah.
guys.
Like, okay. Like, we know Skeletor is a villain, but you don't need to take it that
Like that's a
direction.
little much. Like
Yeah.
there are certain things that get you yeeted on YouTube, so I'm not gonna make the. I'll make the joke privately later when YouTube isn't
Right.
gonna do it. But there's a certain island that was in the news that I'm just like, yo, Skeletor.
Right. Yeah.
It was a little. It was even as a kid, I'm like, this is really weird, and I reread it as an adult, and I'm like, oh, that's really weird. And I have
Yeah.
that first coloring book they did in '82, where like they kidnap Tila, and it's like, you're gonna marry me, and he like
Yes.
magically puts her in a wedding dress, and I'm just like, oh, guys, I don't. Oh, this doesn't.
Yeah.
Even then, I think it was at that cusp, and it's like because all of that quickly disappeared, where Skeletor stopped trying to kidnap Tila and marry her because she was the guardian of Grayskull. So I guess we have the convolution of the sorceress to thank for making that go away at least.
This is true. Yeah. That was the.
No, it was a lot.
We don't miss those kinds of stories. We're glad they're gone.
Yeah, I'm just rereading them. It's just wild to think like how much of that as kids we read and just sort of, oh, okay, let's keep going. Like, that seems
Mhm.
normal. I don't think it never felt, it always felt weird to me even as a kid reading that one. I mean, it made Skeletor more awful, but it was an odd choice. But
Yeah.
it was of the times. That's what we say now, right? When something's weird and gross, it was of the time.
Right. Yeah. You had to be there.
I think that as an adult when I was first looking at it, the one thing that cracked me up is like, wow, like that literally is one, the cheapest wedding dress I've ever seen, but two, it looks directly like so earth-like. Like
Oh
Skeletor has
yeah.
a terrible 80s fashion sense for wedding dresses.
Yeah. It takes you right out of the story. Like,
Yeah, like I'm
okay.
at some point because that coloring book has like 3 complete stories in it. I'm gonna do all of them at some point, like as stories on the channel. But I've been going back and forth like with whether or not I should break out the tracing paper and then retrace the wedding dress stuff and give her some sort of warrior battle armor or not.
Hmm.
Like because ultimately my goal is sort of making an archive of this, and it feels like that might stray too far, but at the same time, that dress just takes me out every time. It's like, oh, look, and it's a mother of the bride dress at that. It's like bad bridesmaids at best. It's not even a nice wedding dress of the time. But of course, if the boys' department designed it, it makes sense. They should have gotten the Barbie people. We need a really elaborate wedding dress for Tila in the scene where Skeletor is trying to force her to marry him. We need something fancier than this. And we need to throw some like gold saucer thingies on her boobs so that it looks sci-fi. So have at it, ladies.
Yeah. Wasn't there like a I know that's not the only like was there like a Disney movie that had something like that, or somebody was forced to marry somebody because of something?
Probably. I mean, it
I'm
sounds like half
blanking.
of our great grandmother's lives, but
Right, yeah.
like marry this guy or you're 14, get married, kid. I feel like there is a Disney movie where like the prince has to rescue somebody from like being married. I know it
Yeah.
happened in The Sword and the Sorceress, that movie with Lee Horsley that came out like 82.
Hmm.
That was sort of a plot point where the evil Cromwell was trying to make. I have those coloring books also, by the way. You want to talk
Gotcha.
about weird things to make coloring books out of in the 80s? R-rated sword and sorcery movie with lots of nudity. Obviously, that didn't make the coloring book,
Right. Yeah.
but I had those as a kid. I didn't watch the movie until I was older because it was R-rated, and I remember watching it. I'm like, they made a coloring book out of this? What? I'm like, my idea of this was much different because the coloring book did not have all this nudity and murder and blood and guts and the evil witch getting her heart ripped out by a demon. I'm like, not, I was older, so I'm like, it's not as bothersome as it would have been, but dang, glad I didn't get my parents to help me rent this one at Blockbuster. I don't know. We did as a kid, I got them to rent Fire and Ice for me.
Oh yeah.
And my mom was like, I don't think we're going to let anyone in this house finish watching this one. It's a little too much. That is how I found out what a camel toe is, though. So I will say, it at least was educational. Because my mom was like, oh my God, what? Why are we seeing her camel toe? And I'm just like, what's that? We have to stop watching this right now.
Stop asking so many
Yeah,
questions.
don't ask that question.
Yeah, I didn't see that until like I don't know, maybe 5 years ago was the first time I saw that.
Yeah. That was, I think, my parents' lesson on not all cartoons are for children. I mean, they knew because I wasn't allowed to watch heavy metal with them. So they knew to a
Hmm.
degree. I think it was just the advertising for heavy metal was because my dad read Heavy Metal magazine and had those. So
Right.
I could have handled heavy metal. I stole those and read those. So they were really good. It's, even the pictures. So yeah, I don't know. It's just the 80s were wild, guys. The 80s were
They
wild.
were. It was another time.
Such a fun shift of worlds. All right, I'm getting close. Done with this guy. I'll just have He-Man left. And did you finish yours?
Yeah, I think I'm done with Dragon Walker. I keep trying to add more shading, but because of it's wax,
Yeah,
there's only so
once
much you
you
can
hit a
do.
certain part with the crayons where it just won't go. There is no more tooth left in your paper. For the 2 to 3 people who watch this for the coloring content, there's no more tooth left in Adam's paper, so he can't add any more layers.
Yeah,
No,
I'd have to like shave the crayons down with
yeah.
like the tweezers.
Still came out. You did really good. Like, it's a lot of shading. A lot more than I would have got with the box of Crayolas.
I thought we had colored pencils, but I could not find them. So
No worries. When I have you back, because I'm definitely gonna have you back, because obviously, there's lots we can talk about. We'll get you set up with some budget pencils that won't break the bank and that you can play around with and get some more shading. And so, but yeah. I don't know. It's fun. I've never colored. That was why when you picked Dragon Walker, I was excited. I'm like, I've never colored a Dragon Walker before. I never had one. It was kind of fun to get to pay attention to it.
yeah, thanks. I don't know. I just thought this is a vehicle that I really like, but it doesn't get a lot of attention anymore, other than to occasionally make fun of it. So I thought it
Yeah,
might be fun.
I'm just gonna say I don't think the Filmation cartoon helped it because
No.
it to me made it look ridiculous. As a kid, I never sort of thought about that until the Filmation cartoon, and then I was like, wait, that's kind of dumb. And it's less than Mattel. Not everything needs to be animated.
Yes.
But it's a cool. I mean, as a kid, like I remember it being a really big deal. Like there were a lot of commercials. I remember Stupid Zachary had one.
Was he a kid in your neighborhood or?
Zachary was a kid at school who he was this. I mean, I say this, we had most of everything, but it was later when my dad started making good money. Zachary always had everything all the time, but you always knew he had everything.
Mm.
I have a friend who like from like back in the day who watches my stuff, and she was like, I didn't realize you guys had all of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, because I didn't invite you over because I was afraid kids would steal it. I didn't actually say that. I said, yeah, because we weren't about bragging to people. But yeah, no, stupid Zachary. He was just the worst. And what's funny is because we grew up in military towns, we moved at one point and I thought I had escaped him. And then his dad got restationed and he was a neighbor again. So and then we moved again and he would still be there when I go for summers. So just gonna escape Zachary, but he had a dragon. He had everything. He was just spoiled.
Yeah.
He didn't have a dad. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I had a
Did I
friend.
say that out loud, Zachary? Anyway, sorry.
I had a friend who kind of had everything too. He was a nice kid though.
Yeah.
He somehow managed to not be spoiled while having all the cool stuff.
Yeah, Zachary was. I mean, I can't. I'm an adult now. I realize Zachary had a lot of problems at home, but I don't care. Fuck that kid. Yeah. Anyway, he was just mean.
Yeah.
He had like all of the Star Wars large size figures, like all of them, even the like hard to find ones.
Oh wow.
I'm sure he had the vintage large size IG-88, but I don't know. He just. I should be nicer to him. He's probably like a nice guy now. But I don't care. He wasn't a nice kid. Anyway. And again, I say that he didn't have a dad. He did. He had a dad. He just never came home. Because he was always out drinking and making money. But that's how a lot of like my parents are boomers, and like part of why we had all the stuff we had was how they showed affection. Like, I can't properly express my feelings, but I'm gonna buy you everything you want, even if we can't really afford it all the time. And so, that was Zachary. I should look him up and I'd be his friend now. I'm sorry you were a terrible child. Let's be friends. And I'll find out he's still terrible and I'll be like, ah. So I'm just not going to be nice. All right, I'm going to check in with chat really quick. Oh, I didn't see. Okay, this is a great point, Christopher. I didn't because my dad liked all of that sort of, like counterculture stuff. So he like so they were aware of stuff like that. Just for whatever reason, they had missed Fire and Ice. So whatever, like it was really easy back in the day at a video store. You just saw a cartoon on the front and get it. Let's go. So we've got people talking art in the comments, which is always good. So. All right. I'm just going to try to get He-Man wrapped up. Yeah. So did you, I just spaced. Sorry. Too many thoughts at once. Also, I was thinking about Zachary, and that always sends me to the, I have childhood trauma. Its name is Zachary. My kid. Sort of. So did you have the Zachary? No, just kidding. We don't want to. I don't want to bring up your Zachary, but So when did you start getting back into MOTU? Because like for me, it sort of the movie killed it for me as a kid.
Yeah.
Plus, I was in middle school. Like boys were suddenly more interesting than yucky toys.
Right. I got out of it in '86-ish because I felt like other than the Snake Men, like most of the stuff that was coming out didn't do it for me. But I the first inkling like, oh, He-Man like was coming back was I when they did the commemorative line in 2001, and I was going to Toys R Us for some reason. I don't remember why, but they just had this huge wall of He-Man stuff. So I left with like a 5-pack, one of the 5-packs,
Yeah.
which was kind of, that didn't get me fully back into it, but I had that for a while. It just,
Yeah.
you know, so, but I didn't really get back into it till about like 2011, 2012, when my son was getting into toys, and I just started thinking, you know, I was looking for something for him that we couldn't find. He was into Lunar Gym, which I don't know if you ever heard of that. It was
Hmm.
this British um, series, and I was finding on eBay some of the toys that he wanted, and I just started thinking about my childhood and how much I enjoyed He-Man, and so then I started looking that up, and then you know, oh, there's this new stuff too at the time, which was
Right.
MOTU Classics, and that got me onto He-Man.org, and that sort of spiraled into, you know, just starting out as a collector, but then, you know, and you know, just basically just collecting for a few years, chatting with folks on the online about it. But then, you know, there was some, you know, robust discussions of prototypes, and or we're going to make, you know, figures based on these prototypes. So I wanted to learn more, so I just started, you know, anything where I could, you know, find information about that, I
Yeah.
would start absorbing it. And it basically, the blog just started as a way to document things, because I would
Hmm.
learn all this stuff and I didn't really know what to do with it, to keep track of it. So I just started putting it together, um, and it kind of just took off from there.
It's kind of good it did because a lot of that stuff only lived in the message boards of He-Man.org, and those ain't there no more.
Yeah, yeah, and that it's yeah, and I agree. You mentioned just, you know, the importance of archiving this stuff. I don't want it to disappear, so
Yeah.
I've I've got my own archives. I want to, you know, I want people to access it. So that's, you know, that's kind of what keeps me going. And there's still, I've covered most of the vintage line toy wise, but it seems like there's always new topics to cover. So I'll, you know,
Oh yeah.
there's always something for me to obsess over and put online.
Well, and there's still for MOTU, there's still in some way, you know, like I kept calling him by the wrong name, but Colin Bailey. Like, have you been able to talk to him, or is he still with us, or what's his deal? Because
No, he passed away quite a well, before I even got back into Motu. I
okay,
think he had cancer. He died
oh,
early.
dang,
Yeah,
you know that guy's got some stories.
yeah, I'm sure he does.
I
I just
had.
know he was. I know he was a cartoonist because Ted Mayer talked about him once. He said
Mhm.
he was a cartoonist. But other than that, I don't know.
I mean, because he's. I mean, obviously, a lot of what they had him do was just, you know, obviously, Evelyn is just Tila with a new head.
Hmm.
And it, my ba- based on based on the clues that you've given us through information, my thought has always been, and I think you even say this on your site. And if you don't, I apologize for the words I'm about to put into your mouth. Um, my thought with Evelyn, based on sort of the Filmation document that went out, where she is regular Caucasian skin tone,
Hmm.
silver instead of the bright blue. My thought was always it was a choice to make her look more, because she looks a few. I did a custom one time, just playing around, where I made Evelyn skin tone
Hmm.
um, Caucasian, and it's a lot more evident that she's just a Tila repaint when you do that.
Right.
So I think it's almost like the faker thing, where it's like, oh, we need to make sure this looks different, so that
Right.
we don't
So
sort of get
shift to
called
opposite
out,
values.
especially post Savage He-Man, where they got that angry mom, the angry Karen mom. Like, this is the same toy he already had. Ma'am, it's got brown hair. It's got brown
Right.
hair. It's not the same guy. Are you saying all white people look alike, ma'am? That's racist.
um,
And you know, Trap Jaw was just an adaptation of that Italian Big Jim toy. So like,
yeah. Um, yeah. I think a lot of the first ones that he did, I think it was just like, okay, we're behind because Mark left,
Yeah.
so let's quickly get some concepts out there. He had existing either molds or ideas from Big Jim, but then once they didn't really catch up till '84, which they would have been working on '83, so that then they could really start. You know, that's where you get a much more robust line. There's only
Yeah.
7 figures in '83, so.
And 84 just has it's like Fisto and Jitsu and Buzz Off. Like, although he later was, sort of one of the original peg warmers, he wasn't at first, kids.
Hmm.
When Buzz Off hit, Buzz Off was a big deal. Like, every character who hit when I was a kid, I just remember it being a big. Whoever the first on the playground was to get the new Masters of the Universe was cool for the day.
Oh yeah, for
It
sure.
was like, especially if it was somebody like I brought Jitsu and people had not, because he was only at like it was called United at the time. It later merged with Service Merchandise until they went out of business. But United would often get, and they were a little pricier. I think this is part of why they would get stuff early. But they got Jitsu before anybody else had, and I got him. And he came with the Secret Liquid of Life mini comic, and I'm like, but he's not in here. How do
Yeah.
I know who this guy is? He's not in the mini comic. And I just remember everyone was like, oh my God, he's got a gold hand. So, as simple as some of this stuff seems, as kids, it was just magnificent. Like,
Oh yeah. I
and
remember there was a kid who brought in Fisto and Jitsu to lunch, like in the lunchroom,
yeah,
and everybody was just like, "Oh, look at these awesome!" And
yeah.
their arms punch. They've got spring-loaded arms and
Oh yeah,
metallic. Yeah.
Fisto and Jitsu are so, and it's like, I've heard people like, it's like, sort of, um, speculating on like why would they put them sort of in these 2 packs and why did they position them? It's like I remember the two of them being really big deals, like
Hmm.
even more so than other characters, where people really watched. Like they were, in my humble opinion, probably if they had done a like Fisto spin-off wave or something where they built out Fisto more, like that probably they could have given us a Battle Fist
Yeah.
back,
Yeah, for sure.
Battle Armor Fisto or whatever. Like
Yeah.
my humble opinion is one of the reasons, um, and it's kind of backed up. One of the reasons MOTU died was they even sort of say, well, we shipped too much, not He-Man and not Skeletor. But I think also there was not enough of refresh. Like I think if in the '87 when the movie hit, if they had done actual refreshes of Evelyn, Tila, Man at Arms,
Hmm.
etc., that were in line with the movie, I think the line would have probably survived. Because we went
Right.
and
Yeah.
saw that movie, and even though we were disappointed, what is the first thing we did when we hit the mall right after the movie? We went to buy toys, and what did we find? Sarod, Weldor,
Yeah.
and
Or
Blade.
peg warming, rock on, and stone dars.
Oh my God, please no. The Rock guy. I mean, I know people love them. I am not. I apologize that it sounds so, but they peg warmed for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like we got them right when we got a couple of the Comet Warriors. We got all kinds. My mom loved the Comet Warriors. They were so cute. Look at them. They're little eggs and they turn into things. And I'm just like, they were so complicated. I could never get that into shape. But I don't know. Yeah, there were a lot of rock on and stone darts. That's why you can find those mint on card pretty quickly because nobody like I don't know. Like that was too much. Like we're gonna rip off the GoBots. And it's not like that GoBots line extension did much better. So
Yeah, the Rock Lords
yeah.
spin-off of GoBots. I must have been a weird kid. I really liked rock toys. Like,
I like if instead of peg warming they had shipped a few less and then made a few more of
hmm.
the Rock Warriors, I probably would have been okay. But it was
Yeah,
the same 2-1. And I'm
yeah.
gonna this just popped into chat and I'm gonna agree. I actually now as an adult I'm like, damn, it would be really cool to get Sarod and Origins.
Hmm.
But as a kid, like for me it was always like you need your major characters and the cool side characters are cool. And I always felt like Fisto was more of a major character than Mattel treated him.
Yeah,
So
yeah, he's definitely. I would agree with that. My favorites from that wave were definitely Clawful and Whiplash. Like I was super obsessed with those two.
yeah,
I love the comic that came with them, the Clash of Arms,
that
which
was a
had
good one.
Fisto and Jitsu and everybody.
And
Yeah,
that was Evelyn's like second mini comic appearance.
yeah.
So, and that was, yeah, that I made my whole mythology about Evelyn. So, all right, I am done. So I'm quickly gonna pop into solo layout for the picture so everyone can see.
Oh, that looks great.
There we go. I will take a picture and stick it on Instagram later.
Yeah, I love that.
There we go. And then really quick, Adam, I'm gonna put you. I'm gonna make you solo so you can hold yours up. There we go. And I'm gonna just remind everyone he used regular Crayolas. So anyone who says you can't do cool stuff with Crayolas just hasn't tried hard enough because that looks really good, Adam. Like
Oh, thank you.
really impressive. So again, it's just about doing the best job you can do with the right tools, and there you go. So, all right. Really, and not to go back, but yeah, we probably won't because after Barbie and her roller skates almost set kids on fire, like nobody wants to go buy sparkling toys ever again.
Yeah.
It's not woke; it's a lawsuit. So, yeah, I think after that happened, like the regulations changed even because I think that little girl actually like was hurt. So I don't want to diminish her getting set on fire by Barbie's roller skates. And it sounds funny the way I'm saying it, but literally, I think she caught on fire. So at least Alicia Keys remembered her. Um, that was snark. I'm sorry, guys. So we're toward the end of the stream. We've both finished our pages, so we're going to start wrapping up. Adam, really quick, where can the people find you?
So other than battleroundblog.com, I'm on Instagram and Facebook as at battleroundblog. Um, Twitter, although not as active there. I think I'm on Threads too, but mostly Instagram and Facebook.
And you do have your YouTube channel, don't forget.
That's right. Oh yeah, yeah, YouTube as well.
You just had a really good Shira video that hit recently. So yeah, and I have the link to your YouTube in the description of this video. But also, if you watch any of my MOTU poster book videos, there are links to the Battle Ram blog. My channel, about 50% of it would not exist if Adam didn't do the work he did, and wasn't such what's the right word? Um, cool dude, because like you're not about like, oh, I found this stuff. It's all about me. You're about sharing the information and getting it out there, and not a lot of people are. So you're a great collaborator. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
We all
Yeah, I
appreciate the work you do.
appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, if anybody, I basically what I say is if you found it on my site, use it. Just either credit me or credit who I got it from because I give credits,
Yeah.
on my site as well. So, but yeah, I never watermark stuff other than my little header graphic for each article. So I do want people to enjoy it and use it.
And you should go enjoy Adam's work. Also, I'm saying this now not because I'm one of his Patreons because he does good work. That's an option. So if you can throw a little extra his way every month, please do. Web hosting is not cheap, and like most of us YouTube creators and content creators, Adam does most of this out of his own pocket. So if you can help, please do, because it's an invaluable service that Adam does for us. So, and yeah, well, thank you. And yep, you're right. So thank you, Alex. We're going to go ahead and wrap up now. I don't know what my video hitting tomorrow will be yet, but there'll be something. And I've got in works What's Missing in Origins video coming up. So keep an eye out for that. I've got some opinions. but it'll be short. So anyway, and as always, next Friday I will be live streaming solo, and I'll be coloring from the 1984 Masters of the Universe book. And then next Sunday I'll be streaming solo. I'm going to start solo streaming once a month with what I'm calling State of the Channel, and I'm going to color some Supergirl stuff. So I will see you all around. And to
Thanks
the
for
snow,
having me on.
yes, yeah, you will. I don't know if he is, but if he is, I'll be there. So, all right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Adam. Like,
Yeah, thank you.
you're amazing. So, and until next time, I'm Allison Joy, Retro Toy Princess, out. And now we just wait for the stream to end.